Costa Rica is an amazing country. It's got everything today's environmentally conscious travelers are looking for, from volcanoes to pristine beaches to Central America's largest tracts of tropical lowland rainforest. Costa Rica is a nature lover's paradise. While filming this travel guide, I met and talked with a lot of people regarding the tourism industry, the growth of tourism, and the direction of the tourism industry in terms of sustainability and environmental and cultural respect. Some worked for the government. Many were lodge owners themselves. One thing they all have in common is their love for this beautiful country. This program is designed to give a little background on where the country is currently, as seen by people who are from Costa Rica, live in Costa Rica, and want nothing but the best for Costa Rica. I hope you enjoy it and find it insightful. The first European arrival in Costa Rica was Christopher Columbus in the early 1500s. While doing a little exploring, he noticed that some of the locals were wearing gold. Because of this, he imagined that further inland there must be a rich empire. Upon hearing this, King Ferdinand ordered it colonized, and by 1506, settlers were getting their first taste of life in the jungle. What they found was a country not rich in gold, but rich with diversity. Costa Rica's national parks and preserves now protect close to 30% of the country. The park system is modeled after those found in Australia, Canada, and the United States. Alvaro Ugalde is one of the pioneers of Costa Rica's park system.
And we as pioneers had a very interesting experience. I'm still alive, so I'm still having it, but it was so much fun. It still is so much fun, but when you go and talk to the president and the president agrees, understands what you're saying and supports you, and then you go to people affected by a park and you sit with them like you sit with the president and they're the same, and they agree with you, but they're affected, so you negotiate. I think one of the reasons we have been successful is because we have used justice as a very, very important variable. I actually say a lot that without justice you won't have any conservation, at least not lasting conservation. You can do something by force, but if people are resentful, they'll get you afterwards.
Realizing its ecological importance to the rest of the world, in 2007, Costa Rica's Nobel Peace Prize winning president, Oscar Arias, issued a decree declaring peace with nature. Peace with nature openly acknowledges the fact that humans are having a negative impact on the planet, but that we also have the ability and the intelligence to begin restorative processes.
Well, it's obviously an initiative that is responding to the environmental crisis that we perceive is underway, which includes, of course, climate change, but it's more than climate change. And it's also an opportunity for this country and for the president not just to commit Costa Rica to actions beyond our borders, but also there's a side to it which is actions inside our borders, where we need to do, where we have succeeded in some parts of the environmental spectrum. Most people agree that Costa Rica has been successful on the green side of things, but despite the fact that we still have to do things there, but in fact in other areas we still have a long way to go. Basically, waste management, to mention a good example of where we need to work very hard, because we have not become sensitive enough to the fact that both water and the environment as a whole becomes deteriorated by our careless management of waste.
The initiative will begin by establishing 12 commissions made up of experts. These commissions will address a variety of environmental issues dealing with waste removal, forests, energy, water, and marine resources. The goal of the commissions will be to establish plans of action designed to help the country meet its goals. Peace with nature has only been on the books since July of 2007, so watching it evolve should be intriguing to those interested in Costa Rica. Tourism is the country's #1 source of foreign revenue. Costa Rica understands that maintaining a healthy environment is not only important for their tourism business, but important for every being living on the only planet we'll ever know. Costa Rica also understands that if we are to have a chance in correcting our course, it's going to require the cooperation of everybody.
The problem with the environment is not a government issue alone. Of course, governments have a big commitment. In our case, we have an article in our Constitution, Article 50, which requires the government to preserve the environment for its population. But we know for a fact that the actions we need to take involve every person, every human, everywhere. We need to become responsible and aware that unless everybody works together, we won't be able to mitigate this problem that we're facing, the many problems. Of course, I say a problem when I'm thinking of climate change or environmental crisis, but it's a series of problems. We know that we know we have a problem with water, we have a problem with energy, we're using obsolete methods, non-sustainable methods. So we have to make changes at many levels, not just governments, but groups of individuals, associations. In this country, we have many communal associations. It's got to happen everywhere. Municipal, local governments have to participate. And in the end, individuals, all of us, have things we can do. And we have to start moving in that direction. And it's a good feeling. It's a good feeling, I think.
So peace with nature gives all of us a north. Okay, here's where we go. Let's say one example. Presidents say a country that should be neutral, carbon neutral by the year 2021. Beautiful. I love it. Because the phrase by itself doesn't mean anything. It's what we have to do to get there. Oh, God. You can't lose the national parks if you want to get there, right? And then you can't have that goal accomplished unless you go to hybrids and alternative energies and whatever you need to do. So it's just beautiful. I mean, that's just one of the main angles of peace with nature.
Another peace with nature angle deals with the tourism sector and seeks to offer tourists the opportunity to see Costa Rica while minimizing their carbon footprint. The country's airline, Nature Air, is attempting to offset their customers' emissions by using part of the ticket price to fund reforestation projects. I guess one of the great things about Costa Rica's Peace with Nature initiative is that it's a small country that's actually doing something to address the health of its own environment. With climate change a known reality, and if Costa Rica is actually able to pull off carbon neutrality, Costa Rica may be credited as the country the rest of the world emulated in an effort to counter global warming. Costa Rica's tourism industry has been booming for the last 20 years, and current estimates show that about 1.7 million people a year come to Costa Rica. Although good for the economy, the country's wildlife has been both negatively and positively affected. In the northern part of the country, big development projects consisting of huge hotels and golf courses have compromised habitat, and the mere increase in human populations presents a host of waste issues. Peter Aspinall was born and raised in Costa Rica. He also owns Tisquita Jungle Lodge in southern Costa Rica and has been a witness to the development of Costa Rica's tourism industry.
And yet, what's happening now is that Guanacaste, one way or another, is being depleted of its water sources. These huge projects have tremendous demand on the gardens that they have in the hotels, the golf courses they have. And just because of global warming, weather cycles have changed, and we're getting a lot less rain than we used to. We may still get the same amount of rain, but it's all coming in one big downpour. And what we really have is a whole bunch of roofs and a whole bunch of concrete, and so the water, instead of filtering down into the water table and getting down into the aquifer and stuff, is just running off into the ocean. And so because of what's happened in Guanacaste, a lot of developers are coming down to southern Costa Rica. And southern Costa Rica is probably the largest chunk of primary rainforest left on the Pacific side of America. I think it's important that government officials realize that the good part of our population in southern Costa Rica make their living off of tourism, whether it be as guides, whether it's whale tours in the Gulf or the dolphin tours in the Gulf. So that's what will keep this intact, is the backing of the local communities because they become part of our integrated system. Because when these big projects come down here, local people, local communities don't know how to speak English, don't have the training, and so it's very difficult for a private enterprise to come down here and set up their shop here. And so what they end up doing is setting up their shop, but they bring in the help from San Jose. So they are creating job opportunities for people that may need the jobs in bigger cities and stuff. But really, those job opportunities should be given to local people. Because as a small farm, even though I have about 800 acres, the survival of my rainforest, the survival of us, depends upon what's around us, our community. And if everything around us gets developed into these big mega projects, well, then you start losing that natural touch, you start losing the natural feeling, you start losing that contact with nature and with God.
As Costa Rica moves forward with its Peace with Nature initiative, many people are wondering if the government will be more restrictive in terms of the types of development it allows. Jack Ewing owns Hacienda Baru on Costa Rica's southern Pacific coast. Hacienda Baru is an 800-acre preserve teeming with life after almost 30 years of habitat restoration projects.
Costa Rica's already developed, and a lot of it I'm not really very enthusiastic about the way it's developed. We've had in the past governments that seem to have wanted to have mass tourism, a Mediterranean-type tourism. And in my opinion, the southern zone is not adequate for that. The southern zone is still very natural. We have a lot of rainforest here and a lot of natural beauty. And I've called it the area of small hotels and big parks. I would hope that maybe the government would pick up on this and promote the idea of small hotels and big parks rather than mega hotels.
Lana Wedmore has lived in Costa Rica for more than 20 years. As a guide, she's seen all of Costa Rica. She now owns and operates the Luna Lodge on the southern tip of the Osa Peninsula. Her lodge borders Costa Rica's richest of all national parks, Corcovado.
You know, I've seen what's happened in the north of Costa Rica, and what we need time to plan, because there was no planning there. I know that change is inevitable, but we need to plan and work together to understand, really. To look at the vision, you have to really imagine what's going to happen here in the next 10, 20 years, and we really need to protect for the animals.
Each year, approximately 17 million hectares of rainforest are lost due to deforestation. Some scientists say that along with the forest, we're losing more than 50,000 species a year. Rainforests are home to half of all life on this planet, only a fraction of which has actually been identified. Many more will be lost before we ever have a chance to understand the contributions they could have made. Rainforests are the world's biggest pharmacy. Again, with only a fraction of the total number of different plants being identified, doctors already use hundreds of plants for medicinal purposes. An estimated 1 in 4 of all purchases from pharmacies contains an active ingredient derived from a tropical forest species. The destruction of rainforests and the ensuing loss of wildlife potentially threatens new medical discoveries. The destruction of tribal societies also means that traditional knowledge of useful plants is also lost. Indigenous cultures have a lot to teach us, and we'd be well advised to be listening.
Es un recurso de todo común, y la utilidad del bosque mantiene mucho parte lo de ecología, y también dentro de ella están todas las medicinas, lo más importante para la salud, y del bosque depende todos los seres vivientes. Y el bosque también es interesante por mantenimiento, digamos, de la humedad y las aguas, el río y el aire. El bosque nos da oxígeno para vivir. Entonces es importante conservar, pero no también solamente conservar, sino ver hasta qué punto podemos conservar y la necesidad de los pueblos.
Rainforests are the planet's air filters. By turning carbon dioxide into oxygen, They help keep greenhouse gases in check. And with pollution levels the way they are, we need as much help as we can get. Healthy rainforests also work for free. Healthy rainforests purify water, which is becoming ever more important the world over. The ability of the forest to absorb water and control erosion makes living in the tropics possible for millions of people.
A lot of us are seeing that if we don't do something together, this country will change very fast. I mean, when you see the size of this country, I learned from you in your video about biological intensity. And some of those, when you live in a country like this, where every day you can walk out the door and be confronted with this incredible beauty, it's hard to be neutral about the future. And to me, it's about showing up in the present, but in a way that we all can show up at our best in terms of what all of us need to do in order to make this work, make it function for everyone.
And for our grandchildren.
And down to our grandchildren. But it's got to not only function in terms of the incredible necessity that we're facing right now of stopping development that abuses the creation. Because there's a lot of that. You know it well. There's a lot of people that think they can come down here and pretty much do what they want because they have the money. But there's an awareness now that we can't do that. And that the thing that I love about what we're getting into with this, what I would call sustainability and sustainable tourism, is that the commitment has to be to the well-being of the local folks. So we can't just think this way in terms of our commitment to the natural surroundings. We have to think about these people, their culture, their traditions, their historical buildings, archaeology of interest, and the indigenous. And to me, the indigenous are going to play a real key in this, in the change, the paradigm change that I think we're after.
The biggest challenge for Costa Rica right now, I think, is not giving in to mega tourism. And I think that they do have the support of the world because it is an amazing place that people... Actually, one of my employees said to me the other day, I was talking to my employees about this and about the growth and what's happening, and one of them said, Costa Rica wasn't named Costa Rica just because it was named that for a reason. And it's really true. Costa Rica is beautiful in so many aspects. The people, look at this, it's paradise. So we have to protect that. And I think that the world is really suffering, and it is a place that the world could look at, and we could start healing here. And even here on the Osa would be the most amazing place to start. So I think the challenge is support mainly, and keeping their act together, not giving in to megatourism.
Ecotourism, on the other hand, is a great way for people to see and learn about new environments while having a great vacation. By definition, eco-lodges take steps to minimize their impact on the environment. They have welcoming and knowledgeable staffs and are eager to share what they know with guests. John Lewis owns La Parrillos, an eco-lodge on the Osa Peninsula. John and his wife Karen built La Parrillos when people were still trying to figure out what ecotourism meant.
It ain't easy being green, said Kermit the Frog. I hadn't thought about that analogy before. It's awkward. And it costs a little more money. It costs a lot of man hours. But when you get the process moving, the benefits are much greater than the costs. It's challenging because there's always new technology, and our guests are always telling us that there are better solar systems. You need to put in hydroelectric. There's this new invention that does this and that, and now it's biodiesel and biogas, and so the challenges are that you keep up with the technology and you keep up with the changes, and as your cheese moves, you move with it.
Many guests return home after spending time at an eco-lodge feeling invigorated, with a new sense of what's going on in some of the world's most important and fragile habitats. Costa Rica is both important and fragile. Important because of its location and its biodiversity. Fragile because of the repercussions that can result from unsustainable development. If you're considering a trip to Costa Rica, please consider staying at eco-lodges and research what you can do before and during your trip to minimize your impact. And when you return home, take what you've learned into your home and workplace. For more information, please visit us on the web at sustainabletv.org.